Welcome to the HAYVN Hubcast, a place to learn what business leaders, owners, and professionals are doing to navigate and grow in today's market. Hear from industry experts on everything from marketing, leadership, financing, and more. Brought to you by HAYVN, a co-working space where you can connect, create, and get stuff done.
Hello, and welcome to another episode of the HAYVN Hubcast. I'm your host, Nancy Sheed, and I am excited to be speaking today with Kim Conti. Welcome, Kim.
Thank you, Nancy. Thanks for having me.
Kim is the founder of Orbit Crates. It is an innovative toy rental company, and I'm not going to say anything else about that, Kim. I'm going to let you share it. But the reason Kim and I have gotten connected is she was the winner of our most recent HAYVN Hatch. So also, congratulations, Kim.
Thank you. What a great experience. It was great meeting Felicia and the team over there.
We love the HAYVN Hatch and the opportunity to meet entrepreneurs such as yourself. So before we dive into more about what an innovative toy rental company is, can we go back, Kim, and sort of say, back in the day, were you always an entrepreneurial spirit? Or did you go down a corporate path? Or what did the world look like when you were younger and thinking about what your career trajectory might be?
Yeah, great question. I think I've always had an entrepreneurial spirit, always looking at innovation and sort of questioning the status quo, asking why is the world this way? And I think just by nature, I'm one of those people that have 100 business ideas in a day. There should be an app for that. There should be a business for that. But I would say that my career did not start off with that trajectory. And I think I definitely had not a sort of typical route. You know, I've been in corporate and startup and consulting settings for the last 20 years. And I think there were some highs and lows of that. There were moments in my career where I was working in industries that I wasn't personally passionate about. I wasn't necessarily in jobs that I wanted to have. And I was really trying to find my way. And so I think that that was a really challenging part of my journey, but ultimately always knew I wanted to build something. I say, you know, I want to build something that changes the world because I'm just passionate about bringing new experiences to people and showing ways that the world can be better. But I would say it was a crooked path to getting here for sure.
Circuitous, yes. Right? Like it's a zigzaggedy, exactly. The crooked. And in terms of, you alluded to sort of corporate and the setup and startup world. Were you, if weren't building your own businesses at those times, what were your roles? Were you advising? Were you on the finance side? Were you in marketing? What skills were you bringing to those sets besides your passion and entrepreneurial spirit?
Yeah, so early in my career, I sat in a variety of roles, always with the thread of innovation and customer experience. So customer research, marketing, I've even done corporate events. I spent a little time in operations and then really sort of fell into product management. I was really excited about building better digital experiences for customers and consumer facing roles that were for legacy industries like financial services and insurance, and really fell in love with the taking my strategic understanding of how businesses work and bringing it to execution and seeing hands-on with developers and designers how we could bring great digital experiences to customers. So spent a lot of time in corporate with Fortune 100 companies, spent some time consulting with a myriad of other industries. And in the last 4 years, I was actually the chief product officer at an AI tech company doing conversational AI. So very different industries than what I'm doing now, but I think I just bring so many experiences from types of leaderships to types of companies to types of roles.
And it's so interesting when you say product, right? Like, so old school, and you mentioned the word legacy, right? So let's just say those who are in legacy companies who haven't been working in the most innovative spaces, you say product, everybody still thinks of like a CPG product, right? Versus, I'm sure there's some amazing stat about how much product is actually digital and not touchable product. But the iteration times are smaller, right? Like the ability of what we can do is greater. In terms of product, in these spaces, it sounds like in corporate, you had teams to work on. When you got up into the startup mode, was it a much smaller scale in terms of having to wear all the hats at the same time? What was that experience like from making that jump?
Yeah, I mean, I think I was always working on innovation teams in corporate environments. So that was my first start. And I would recommend anybody that's maybe in a legacy company that wants to try their hand in startups is really getting into those innovation places. And I think thankfully a lot of industries are supporting that, right? Innovation hubs and hackathons. So
Yeah.
I think there's a place there. Moving to my last startup, I had worked in a startup very early in my career, but it was about to merge. So it had kind of gone through all the iterations, and obviously there's lots of iterations of a startup. The last startup I was at, I helped transform them to an agency business to a product company, a SaaS company.
Mm.
And yet it was wearing all of the hats, but I think that's actually one of the things that I realized I really love and sometimes don't always love about being in a startup. I think because, again, I've had such a patchwork of experiences, I can do a lot of different jobs. And I also know where I need to outsource and hire a team to do a lot of different jobs. So I was
Mm.
able to really help that company grow, expand, and collapse at times, and then expand again. And I think some of the hardest lessons there were just the ruthlessness that it takes for a startup when you don't have a 30,000 person organization, you've got a 12-person organization, right?
Yeah, yeah. And well, I'm not going to speak for you, but in situations where your runway is short, the cash is getting tight, and you've got big dreams and big plans, and you've got to make critical decisions on how you're going to allocate your resources, be that people, time, talent, etc. Kim, before we kind of go into how you got to sort of found your own startup, as you were making these moves in your career, were you the person who was sort of looking at the next opportunity? Were you the person who was like, oh, I want to do that next? Was it a matter of you having a good board of advisors that you'd put around yourself to ask questions of? Did you have some mentors who maybe were like, oh, Kim would be great for this. Let's call her over and have her join us on this project?
Yeah, it's a great question. I mean, I've worked for some really amazing leaders. I would say I think it's been a little bit more of a self made path. My parents, for example, my dad owned a dry cleaner when I was young, and my mom worked a little bit in corporate, but it was really trying to navigate what that looked like. And it wasn't like they had sort of a steady ladder and said, follow this. It was me
Mm-hmm.
trying to figure out what worked and what didn't. And again, so I would encourage people who are trying to figure that out and may not have all the resources, like people in their family or their network who have done this before. I think it was just about a thirst and a hunger and sort of wanting more. My first and foremost focus in those jobs was performance, right? You've got to perform and you've got to show your value to a company and really drive business outcomes. But I was always looking at the next thing. And I think I just had internal values of where I wanted my career to go.
Mm.
And sometimes I made some really interesting decisions that were quite controversial. Like I left my job in the middle of COVID. I left a job when I was 5 months pregnant with my third child. And people kind of couldn't believe the moves that I was making. But it was because I was very focused on sort of my career and what I wanted that to look like.
I love how the resonating with the internal values, right? Like whether we're working for ourselves or a company or even with, I think it's an exercise that a lot of people don't necessarily stay intentional about, right? And
Mm-hmm.
I appreciate hearing how that happened. So Kim, talk us through, you were at a startup before you founded your own company. How long, was it one point or was it a series of points where the figurative light bulb goes off and you started seeing the opportunity for the company Orbit Crates that you founded?
Yeah, again, a non-traditional one. So I actually started the business back in 2023. So I worked with the Women's Business Development Council in Connecticut. They're a phenomenal resource. And it was this thing that I was moonlighting and doing. And I was like, oh my gosh, it's in me to build something. We'll talk a little bit about the pain points. I really wanted to build this company. And so I was doing that sort of in the background and launching and testing and iterating and figuring out what it meant to build something new. And I had gotten really good traction in this moonlighting where I had gotten some paid customers. And I was at this crossroads in end of 2023, 2024, where my regular startup role, I was traveling a tremendous amount. I had 3 kids at home and I couldn't kind of do all of it.
Right.
So I quite literally put the toys on the shelf at the time and had to make a tough decision. And it was always this, well, maybe the universe will tell me that it's time to go do this. And that magical moment didn't happen. I think it was just in me again at the time of those internal values of after 20 years of doing every type of other job, I just knew that I had to go build my own thing. And so I picked the business back up in the end of 2024 and have just been really going hard at it since. And thankfully, I was fortunate enough to be able to leave my full-time job to pursue this full-time.
Congratulations. That's so exciting.
Thank you.
And in terms of putting it on a shelf and bringing it back off the shelf and going kind of all in, I would assume that involves a different mindset in terms of now we're going in, it's all or nothing versus let's just keep testing and reiterating and everything's not in there. When you said earlier that kind of wearing so many hats and liking to wear all the hats, at some point as a founder, at some point you're going to be like, I need the support or I need the team. This is what I'm great at. Or as you said, if you're honoring your internal values, these are the things that are most important to me. I need support in other areas. How did you go through that decision-making process? Or was it a matter of, again, hard lessons and mistakes? What did that look like when you were figuring out who to help support you in this endeavor?
Still learning, many mistakes every day. I mean, listen, first and foremost, for me, it happened to be a family decision. I've got a spouse and I've got 3 kids and my husband is amazing, but it was a very personal decision, right? Of changes in our income situation and what our day-to-day would look like and our commitment to do this. So there was some of that. I think that, it was the mental energy to get behind this, to say it is all and nothing. And I was absolutely there. Again, I felt like I couldn't spend another day not giving it a try because I just felt like whatever job I have wasn't going to scratch this itch to build my own thing. And I said before that, this is not really true, but I don't even care if it's successful. I just want to get it out there. I want to share to the world that these experiences and this idea. So I think it was very much that family decision. And then regarding the team, I mean, I think I'm fortunate to say just a couple months in, I have a phenomenal team, and it is not a traditional team. It's a lot of people who I've worked with in the past who are frankly doing favors, or they're doing little projects here and there. I've been able to find some amazing interns and some amazing creative ways to get grants and funding, but this is a bootstrapped company, so it is very creative. I've had some partners locally to me who I've exchanged services with, right? Really trying to figure out where those gaps are because, Nancy, to your point, I certainly know where I'm good at. And I think the best thing that a startup does is it humbles you. It highlights things that you are not so good at. And it's this balance of how do you do it all while you're moving very quickly? And then when is the time to say, I actually really need support in these areas?
I love that. And in the bootstrap nature and people doing favors, I mean, I think that's also the way that Entrepreneurial Spirit works. And you mentioned the Women's Business Development Council, and there are a lot of resources out there that I don't think entrepreneurs always necessarily know about. And that's one of the things we love highlighting here is hearing about the behind the scenes journey of, oh, I didn't think about doing it that way, or, oh my God, I can totally relate, or I didn't think about the bartering would be an option, or leveraging, as you said, your partnerships. And can we have it? I didn't mean to gloss over and skip over actually what your company does, because it does sound like it's seizing an opportunity in the market. So at what point, when you were even doing this as you said, your side hustle or your moonlighting project, when was that an aha? Was this when you had little kids and toys were everywhere, or what was that moment?
Yeah, absolutely. So we are a toy rental company focused on reducing clutter in American homes and increasing intentional play with kids. And I think there were several different moments. My kids are now 11, 9, and 5, so I'm a little bit out of the day-to-day toys, but so many lessons learned there. And I think when my first child was born, I wanted to be a minimalist, right? We were all going to have the single toy basket in the corner. The child is not going to change our lives, our home. And then very quickly, I found that me and many other parents were drowning in toys. And, I had some friends who had full playrooms, like beautiful homes, and their playrooms were toys, or other parents who didn't have the space were just completely overwhelmed by it. And I saw some parents, we'd all buy the same expensive wooden barn, and then our kids would be out of that stage 3 months later. And so I just felt like there were so many pain points for very busy parents around toy management that I felt like there has to be a better way. And I think again, those values, right, of like the world telling us buy more, consume more, get a gift for every holiday, I felt like there's got to be a better way, therefore toy rentals. And then just as we went on, this experience of seeing the kids do more with less. And I think we've sort of stunted childhood creativity by giving them a toy for everything that they need to do. You get a baking set and they need a menu. Why can't they make the menu? So
Right.
this whole business is not only about the product and service that we offer, but also about helping to educate parents that we can all do more with less so that we are all less stressed, children and parents included.
And in your sort of starting to test it out, was your initial test group your peers because you were in the middle of it? How did you sort of take hold when you said you had some successes, you had some customers, you had some clients? I mean, does that also suddenly mean you had to have an inventory for every single toy in the market, or you went and did the research to figure out what was the most important or what the key items were at the time?
Yeah, so I would say as a founder, one of the hardest things to do is the first step, which was I had to go out on a Facebook group and share my idea and ask people what they thought, right? And it seems like in corporate, I would say, oh, just get it out there. But now this is such a more personal thing. So my early customers were people in the neighborhood, but not necessarily only friends and family. And I had some customers who I actually still keep in touch with now who just really believed in the mission. And that was amazing and a beautiful experience. And were testing and iterating with us. And that's what I bring to this business is my experience with co-creation and true customer iteration, absolute customer focus, really, really focused on that. And so to the inventory question, I think one of the nice things about doing this business as compared to when I was in insurance is this is an intuitive thing as a mom. I know what toys my kids play with. I know what toys break. I know what some of that. But absolutely, there's a lot of iteration going on with the customers I had then and the customers I have now in terms of the types of toys they've liked. And we've built up our inventory. So we've got about 400 toys. Not all of them are fully listed on our website. And we're going to be doing a lot of data and analytics, which is where my technical background will come in to how we scale this company. But yeah, it's a lot of test and learn. We got a lot of toys. We're still getting feedback.
Amazing. And fast forward to end of last year, you've literally pulled it off the shelf. You've gone all in. Was the HAYVN Hatch your first opportunity at pitching? Have you been pitching? And again, was some people pitch for concept and idea versus some people are pitching looking for money, investors, and clients. Where would you say you are in that spectrum? And how is that experience of getting ready for pitching?
Yeah, I mean, like many people, right? Sometimes public speaking can be nerve-wracking, no matter how much you've experienced it or how many times you've done it before. HAYVN is amazing, but they definitely push you into that 3-minute elevator pitch with the timing, and you got to get people hooked. So it took a lot of practice. I mean, I was practicing out loud a lot, really honing the story that I wanted to tell, the key points that I wanted to get across. And by that time, I was ready. And I think some of the things that I've learned from public speaking is just nervousness and excitement can be the same thing, and sort of being able to tell myself that the nerves, the racing heart, all of those things are actually because I'm so excited to tell the story. And that's so true for me. And so I was very ready to tell the story like I am now. I would say from the goal of that is a couple of things. We are still in the education phase. I think there's so much education, like I said, for parents around mass consumerism is a problem for us, especially in America. How do we sort of quell that? What solutions are out there? So that's step one, educating people of what a different world could be. And then step two, yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think we're still very early on. So looking for investors who I think are willing to write the first check very early on in a company where we think we can have really significant growth. This company can be operationally and technically complex, but I think the upside is tremendous. So we're looking for investors or partners that can do that, as well as a technical co-founder, right? I came out of tech. I actually am ready to kind of push that off to somebody else from a day-to-day perspective.
Got it. And you're up and running. I mean, we've got customers. So yes. At the end of all this, always having more customers is a wonderful thing for growth while you're in this education phase. Kim, it's such a treat to talk to you. I feel like I could, your energy and excitement is truly coming through. what a great time and to be talking to you and just sort of at this, not even precipice, at this sort of fun stage of your business. If people are interested in learning more about Orbit Crates or getting in touch with you, what's the best way to do that?
Yep. So we're looking for pilot customers you want to check out on our website today. You can do that on orbitcrates.com. And you can also follow us on social media at Orbit Crates.
Awesome. Kim, thank you so much for joining us today. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.
This is another episode of the HAYVN Hubcast. If you like what you hear, please make sure you're a subscriber. We love wonderful ratings on wherever you listen to your podcasts, and share this with a friend. Thank you.
Thanks for listening to the HAYVN Hubcast, a place to learn what business leaders and owners are doing to navigate and grow in today's market. Please leave a review on Apple Podcasts and subscribe on your favorite podcast app. HAYVN is a co-working space and virtual community located in the heart of Fairfield County, Connecticut. HAYVN is a hub for business owners and professionals to connect, create, and get stuff done. Find out more about the HAYVN community online at hayvn.com. That's HAYVN.com. HAYVN Hubcast is produced by Sound Advice Strategies.